Hi, just wanted to go live real quick this morning with a public service announcement. This is something that's been on my mind and just wants to channel through, so I'm going to go ahead and say it. You can't get to the other side without first going through the brambles. You can't have health without first having to go through unhealth, without first having to sort out the levels of toxicity within yourself, in your relationships, in your environment. Like, it's this one-sided focus on light work, of it's all love and light, is really skewed and imbalanced, and it's not taking into account the shadow aspect. Shadow work is exceptionally important. It needs to be undertaken in order to get to where you want to go. So I want to just break out a few examples of that. You can't really expect to be clear-minded and have any kind of sensitivity or clear idea of where your body's at without first taking into account, for example, the toxicity of an environment would include things like the chemicals being used, the dust, the mold, the sound pollution of the particular area that you're in, the distraction in your environment, like how often a person interrupts you, the energy drainage, just overall how distracting that environment is, how disrupting, where you can't really get any quiet time to meditate. Like, I see this a lot on the online space where people go on about like their troubles, and then a one-sided guru would basically respond with, you need to go meditate. Meditation is not the be-all, end-all. You have to ask a full holistic interpretation of where they are at on all levels before you can give advice of this sort. So for instance, if you told them, okay, well, you need to go meditate, and you didn't ask them, do you have anywhere quiet? Do you have any space that you can do such a thing? Where are you at trauma-wise? Because sometimes when we pretend that the shadows are not there or that the trauma isn't actually happening, we can neglect people through indifference. We can advise certain things to them without a full view of what they're really going through. Somebody that has embedded traumas, that is being given advice like, just think positive thoughts or go meditate on it, is not being given accurate advice at all, because this trauma is very real. It translates in the body, in the person's actions and where they're at, and that must be addressed before the more healthful aspects can come through. So that's another example. You can't meet the version of yourself that you're longing to become without first facing up to the aspects that are more difficult, without first having to do spring cleanup and prune and cut out things that are unhealthy for yourself and for others. Like, how can you expect to run a successful endeavor or, do some work in the world when you, for instance, wouldn't want to do work on your procrastination habits or lack of motivation? It doesn't add up, and it doesn't work. And anybody that's ever had success with anything, whether on mental, emotional, physical levels, has first addressed the limiting beliefs. So that's basically what I wanted to bring into this live this morning, that in order to receive what it is that you're intending, what it is that you're longing for, first of all, the limiting beliefs have to be addressed. And believe me, there are a lot of them. And you can dig into the subconscious for them, because they're there, and they come to us in the variety of things that are being reflected back. That is your self speaking to you. So for example, if I keep seeing the same thing in my reality over and over again, that is a message to change something about a belief or to look more deeply into something. But to be honest, the reason that I came on here, aside from this general topic with examples, was to specifically say that after having been on this health journey, let's primarily say physically, even though it also has mental and emotional components, after so many years, I've gotten to a level of sensitivity and understanding and awareness with my own body that I just know when something in the environment is harmful or doesn't feel right. Now, this is not necessarily the case for everybody, and the way that I mapped it out was kind of like a grid. The more aware you are about certain things, the more conscious the effect is. The more the effect is conscious and available to you in order to do something about it. But let's say the less aware you are about that choice, the more subconscious it's representing. So I've noted this in that I can tell people in my environment all day long that the things that they're using are toxic, because it's a fact, they are. These things are affecting us. But I hadn't taken into account that they are affecting us differently. So for me, I am aware of the effect. I can see what it's doing. I can make a conscious decision about it. In fact, I can sense straight up on my body what is going on. Like, for example, feeling the mold or the chemicals comes to me as a tightness in the throat. Oh, I've just been here for a week in my family home, and I'm feeling the energy levels just drop over the course of this week. Feeling sinus blockage increasing, the swelling around my eyes. I had these particular food sensitivities that I felt like I overcame when I moved away. And having come back, bit by bit, I'm feeling that there's a hypersensitivity going on, and the symptoms are increasing again. Like there's an autoimmune response going on. And I'm very aware that it's things in my environment, because I've been here so short, and I had made such progress being away, that I can feel it day by day, moment to moment. I can feel what is going on. Now, I didn't consider that if you are not aware of the effect of these things or had a relationship with yourself about them, it's not manifesting in the same way. So it reminds me of where I was at in my journey prior, which was things were in the subconscious. They were sub-awareness. They were not accessible for me to be able to untangle them and understand, well, this is doing this is doing that. So a more subconscious effect might be anything really, because as soon as it's suppressed or hidden, it can go anywhere. It can be blocked out of the mind if it's too traumatic. A part of the self can split off, like a part of the soul can split off in order to cope with this trauma. And basically, trauma comes in all shapes and sizes. It can literally be a physical trauma, physical abuse. It can be the trauma of an emotionally abusive partner, a misunderstanding parent. It can be the trauma of personal soul death, like rejecting part of yourself. It can be watching something as a child that was too difficult to cope with, and it can be physical toxins in the environment, especially if it's something chronic, like you have to be around it day after day after day. You don't necessarily have the leisure day after day to become aware of it, because you might have a routine that you need to keep up with. You might have mouths that you need to feed. So I can understand why not becoming aware of these things, in a way, it's a protective mechanism. It keeps you from having to go through it. And the only way to heal something is to go through it, is to feel it. So, basically, currently, the thing that I most wanted to leave some value with on this video is just to explain that the subconscious effect is something that I want to have more patience with and have more compassion with, because no one is doing this on purpose. They're not denying that something might be toxic in order to spite me or anyone that might be trying to bring this idea to them. It's just that from the level of awareness that they are at, they are unable to accept this, because in accepting it, other things that it's attached to will unravel. It's like one worldview holds up all the others. And for me, on this journey, it basically went with one thing unraveling, attaching to everything else, and the whole thing came undone. And I was there for it. It was hard, and I basically asked for it. I asked for anything and everything that was standing in my way to show up, so I can understand who I really am and why everything is the way that it is. But not everyone is there. And the last thing that I want to leave this on is that instead of trying to change my environment, I can work on myself. And so for me, what that looks like is get myself to an environment that is conducive for me. Move away if it is something that is harmful to me. If I can't convince people in my environment that the chemicals that they're using are toxic, or that the environment that we live in is highly allergenic, it isn't my job to convince them. I can simply shine my light in my own experience. I can share what I know, because I'm not one to not share what I know. But I can't insist on it, and I can't change it, and I can't do anything if they don't want to take me up on this, for very understandable reasons. But overall, if there's something that I'm feeling for myself, I've got to act on it for myself. And so that's what I would want to leave you with today. If there is anything that you want to ask some questions about, you can always drop me a message or comment on this video. I do a lot of kind of holistic practice on the dimensions of the mind, body, and soul, kind of looking into all of the different aspects that interlock and intertwine to make your experience what it is. And I'm a big proponent of the fact that you can't just focus on one thing and neglect the other. Like, you can't solely focus on the physical and not take into account your, let's say, your mental or your emotional diet. Like, what are you consuming in your environment? What are your thoughts like? And so on. So, I hope you guys have an amazing day or night wherever you're at. And yeah, it was a big load off my chest. And see you on the other side.